Hey guys, I have my journal here with my notes, and then I have my Bible to share kind of a reaction or a response to another video that a friend sent me. So this may have nothing to do with you. You may not understand any of this, and that's fine. But my friend sent me this video, and it had been something that I'd been telling her over the years. So maybe years from now, days from now, this will make sense to you. Okay, the video that I'm sharing my perspective of, and then I really enjoy his perspective. You have to watch it. The Cost of a Fantasy by Pickens. It is a mature audience kind of video. This one may be as well. I don't know. I think I can get through it without saying too much. But I think it's kind of PG-13, his video. It's kind of like PG-13, like towards maybe PG, more older. But anyways, it's not too bad. He talks, to me, what I'm captivated by is the spiritual spouse element. But here's the overview of his video. He's in a dream, and there's the house of fantasy. Each room has the man's fantasy. Not the dreamer, but he's in a house full of men and women. The women are fulfilling these men's fantasies. So that's what it is. There are women at the door waiting for an invite, and the dreamer, Mr. Pickens, okay, he lets them in. So then there is one woman that fulfills what this man wants, his fantasy of a woman. They start talking. All of a sudden, she's naked. I'm trying to make this tasteful or whichever. She says, "Taste of my flesh, it is sweet." So that is strange to him. Like, he's very cognitive that this is all weird. This is not. But she keeps saying, "Taste, taste, taste." And he does. Then it's just straight perversion. His head just went gone. And so he's in this snowball effect. I won't go into it. And again, I think he remains as tactful as possible in telling his story. So all of this is going on. And the woman... Sorry, I'm just trying to make it quick. Then he hears a great thunder, and all the women disappear. He goes outside. All the men go outside. There's a darkness that is covering the sky, and everyone's panicking. He sees his son. He grabs his son, but there was I guess like an earthquake. Something happened, and his son fell out of his hands, but disappeared, gone. So everyone's gone. There's a mass panic. The man is crying out for Jesus. He says he knows Jesus hears him, but is refusing to listen. So then he wakes up and he asks God, what is the reason for this dream? And he learns that God says the women were not natural, but spiritual, to keep the attention off God. These women had intent of taking the focus away from God. Another point was men are married in the spirit. Even men in high places in leadership. So the verse where if you look at when Yeshua says, when you look at a woman and you lust, it's as if you did it in the natural. So we create these spiritual covenants, these spiritual marriages in the spiritual realm, even as if it was in the natural, the flesh. So when these men were participating and having these relationships with these women, they were creating and nurturing these spiritual unions. So that's what that was, and I believe in that. Okay, the Rod, he says, Mr. Pickens says that God told him this happens to men in leadership, and I think that's so important because a lot of times people look at the Christian men or these godly men or these men in authority in the churches, in the religious spheres, and they think that they're immune to temptations, to the enemy, to whatever, but they're actually the target, because they're leading people and they're leading these masses astray if these men go into covenant with whatever that's ungodly. So that's important. I think taking off the veil and thinking that these men in leadership and women, that these people in leadership are immune, these godly people are immune from deception or from attacks. Like, that's not true. That's something we need to get past, and that's why we need to pray for the people in leadership, men or women. But don't think that they are immune. Okay. Their appetite. I'm sorry. Let me read my notes so I can put in sentences. Okay, these men's appetite were so fed in sin and the fantasy and these spirits that they try to pervert their natural women, their natural wives, into being those women. Try to pervert what God gave them. And so I have a tiny bit of experience with that. I've seen that in other places, but I have a tiny bit of experience. What that looks like is, I had a boyfriend and he was just like, oh, you look like this character. I don't even know what it was, a movie, a game, or whatever. And I thought, oh, that's cute, thanks. It's like, you should start wearing these colors. You should do your hair like this. There's like so many elements. I'm trying to filter in what to say just for time. But he kept like talking about this character and how I should look, dress, act, and it got my attention. And I did have a talk with him. I said, and it never got abusive or weird. This guy, really great guy. So I have nothing bad to say about him. I'm just saying that there was a situation that we experienced. And I had to let him know, like, I think you want this person more than me, this character more than me. I don't think it's me that you want. But that's just a mild look at what this looks like, because God goes on to tell this man that God did not make woman of that nature, and the man became displeased with his wife. So this leads into men being abusive, physically, spiritually, verbally, just neglect, and so on and so forth. These men that continuously feed their appetite and nurture these spiritual spouses, they may not know that they're spiritual spouses. They just know that they have this desire for this thing, and they're upset for this woman for not being this person, because they think that they're mudding it. So women, their wives, or girlfriends, or whichever, they are being abused because these men desire this spiritual spouse. They desire them to become this spiritual spouse, and they're not understanding why it's not happening. So there's that frustration. Okay, in the dream, I'm going to go back and give my notes. So that's what Mr. Rod Pickens talks about in his video, with a little bit of my notes and my experience. And, okay, the House of Fantasy. Kevin L.A. Ewing, great teacher online, you can find him, and I reference him a lot because I learned a lot from him. He talks about the house being the soul. And so when this man was in a dream and in a house with these rooms and fantasies, that was kind of a picture of his soul or someone's soul, or what the soul looks like. It's divided. There's different fantasies going on. When he opened the door, it's kind of like those traditional vampire stories where the vampire has to be invited in. Same thing for the enemy. The enemy has to be invited in. We are covered, protected, so on and so forth. But when you let the enemy in, you're giving him what a lot of teachers say, legal allowance. He has legal right to come in. You invited him in. And I'm sorry, I keep calling the enemy he. Like, it's a genderless thing. So when the dreamer allowed them in, like, so be careful of what you're allowing in your dreams. At the same time, when you dream of houses, and this is just a side note, you could be looking at someone's soul, or you could be watching what's actually happening in your soul. God may be revealing different things to you. That's something to look forward to. Again, it's just a side note. Now, as a woman, and the perspectives that I have learned as a woman, I'm going to share a little bit of that. I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out which direction to go. The eating. In the dream, she talked about, eat of my flesh is sweet. Eating is forging a covenant. You have in Luke 21 or 22, where you have what's sometimes called the Lord's Supper, where Yeshua says, eat of my body and my blood. It's forging a covenant. When you sit and eat with someone, you're forging a covenant. Kevin L. Ewing says, do not eat in your dreams. So I will be referencing him a lot in this video alone. So be careful of that. And that's common. You'll see that in the Bible. You'll see that in your life. When you go out to eat with someone, you're coming into agreement with that person. Proverbs 23 talks about it. Proverbs 23, when you sit down to dine with the ruler, think carefully about who is before you. If you have a big appetite, put a knife to your throat. Don't be greedy for his delicacies, for they are deceptive foods. Don't exhaust yourself in pursuit of wealth. Be smart enough to desist. If you make your eyes rush at it, it will no longer be there. Okay, that's deception of money. Let me find the food references again. Okay, verse 6. Don't eat the food of a stingy man. Don't be greedy for his delicacies, for he is like someone who keeps accounts. Eat, drink, he says to you, but really doesn't mean it. The little you eat, you will vomit, and your compliments will have been wasted. More like wisdom here. Don't be one of those who guzzles wines or those who eat meat in excess, for both drunkard and glutton will be poor. Drowsiness will clothe them in rags. Okay, so that was one place that he went wrong. When she said, eat of my flesh, it is sweet. He made covenant right then and there. He says that that's when the perversion of his mind, of his decisions and choices just went everywhere else. So that's something to be mindful. That might be a side note. Do not eat in your dreams. If you do, pray after against any covenant that had been forged, any agreement that you made that had been forged. The Bible talks about the strange woman. Or that Proverbs 7. You read Proverbs 7, talks about the strange woman. In fact, almost every Proverbs talks about the strange woman who comes in, lures you, deceives you, says all these great things, but it leads to death. The strange woman is spoken about a lot. In the natural realm, in our everyday world, that is still a thing. There's something that I learned about called the marine kingdom, where this the spiritual spouses and the strange woman is a key feature. So you would think, or should think of, to help the sirens or mermaids, how they would lure in the seafarers, or just men out traveling, or whomever out traveling in the waters. They would lure them in with the way they look, with their songs, and that would lead to the men's ultimate destruction. So that is the marine kingdom. It distracts you, but it also recruits other people. And so you have people that are recruited to entice other people to the destruction. So what that looks like as a woman to other women, or even men, like something to be mindful of. You may be operating or forging a covenant where you are that strange woman. You may have adrenaline rush when other people, when you're seducing other people, or you want to break up relationships. It just gives you an adrenaline rush. You don't necessarily want that other person. You just desire, and you, I don't know how to really say it, just that rush that you can do that. And that's kind of just the bottom line of what that looks like, because it does elevate. You have different levels. I know that I experienced it when I would have dreams and I would be coached on how to be more seductive, how to be more pretty, how to make other people like me more. And as a woman, be mindful of people that are coaching you to be seductive. They could be recruiting you in the spiritual realm and in the natural realm to lead other people to destruction and ultimately yourself. I think that's mostly a lot of what I had to say. I'm going to put links of other things that have helped me, or other videos that I have made that I learned kind of in relation to this. So I hope this helps you understand spiritual spouses. Sorry, not necessarily soul ties. Soul ties, it's a little bit related. Incubus, succubus, the man in the hat, the old hag, Asmodeus. Those are names that are usually associated with the spiritual spouses. Breaking them, purge of it. Numbers 30 talks about annulling covenants, and it's usually about the woman, her covenants and her oaths being annulled. But I do believe that as the bride of Yeshua, or the wife of God, Israel is the wife of God, that, consider that you can, as a man, consider that you can go to God and Yeshua and say, annul me. That's something that you'll have to consider. I apologize. I only know my perspective. I think that's it. I'm going to call it quits before I continue to ramble. Thank you.